The Stranded J Podcast.
Welcome to the episode 4 live stream post, after party of Daredevil Born Again, where we're going to discuss all things Daredevil Born Again, including the newest episode that came out today, episode 4. There will be spoilers, which, we'll keep reminding people as we go through. There are going to be big spoilers, including theories, which, not to brag, but I would say that a lot of times my theories come true with comic book shows. Not always. I get surprised a lot, but a lot of times too, I get surprised, and then a lot of times I'm right. What?
Sorry, that sounded so nerdy.
It did. But sometimes
Not to brag, but a lot of my comic book theories.
It's true though. Like, I'm right.
I know you are.
I'm right a lot of times. The times that I'm wrong, I'm not like upset by it. I'm like, that's awesome that I was surprised, and like I love that feeling. But like, I can a lot of times predict kind of where this is going, and I think a lot of other people can too, especially people who've read the comics and like who are big comic book geeks like me. So yeah, there will be spoilers and there will be theories, and some of them may come true. So don't get mad if I predict something and you say spoilers, because I didn't know. I mean,
But we are going to have spoilers regardless.
Yes, that is correct. Alrighty, so let's just jump right in.
Okay.
You sound like you have a lot to say this week, so I want to start with you.
No, I really don't. I don't have too much to say. I liked the episode. Actually, every single episode I feel like is getting a little bit better. One thing that I really appreciated about this episode in particular is that it was I liked that it was kind of detective, Matt. It was kind of noir.
Yeah.
Detective. And I thought it was really cool how he found the bullet casing. I don't know how he found Punisher. I don't know how he found him.
I lost the threads to that a little bit too. I just kind of guessed that he was able to trace from the bullet casings leading to his hideout. Like, I just think there was just using his senses, essentially. He was able to kind of follow. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're right. It was a little loose on like where he started that, but like he saw the sewer drain and stuff getting sucked into it, which then made him, I think, assume that he could, if he went down there, it would lead him somewhere else. And then I think the reason he knew it was Frank, I don't think he instantly knew it was Frank. I think he just followed that, and then his senses, he could recognize him through his senses by that point. But it was a little lost in the sauce with that. I'd have to watch it again, I think, to see if I missed something.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something subtle, but the problem too is that's one thing that has been glaring throughout the series so far, is that I feel like the writers really love you not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, they follow that trope that happens when you do a time jump, where they like to do the time jump and then all of this stuff is established differently that you're not used to, and then they kind of reconnect the dots as you go through the season. I don't mind that, but it has to be written a very specific way for my taste to be like fully on board with it, because there's a lot of times people do it and it's like, I just want to progress the story, and I know that we're progressing it, but we're got to go backwards to go forwards. And
the other thing that complicates it is that you're going off of a series that was already built and established, but it was, when did season 3 come out?
Season 3 was like
4 years ago?
7 years ago, something.
What?
I think they said I think it was 7 years since season 3 came out. It was right after we started dating. When did we go to Tennessee?
I don't think that was right after we started. I thought that was like 2023.
Yeah, no, it wasn't 2023. Tennessee was before I ever went to we went to Disney the first year we were together. Mm-hmm. It was the second year. So yeah, but I think I looked it up. I think it was 2019. 2018 or 2019. It was somewhere in there. It was really...
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
We did not go to Tennessee in 2019, by the way.
Did we not?
No, that was before we moved to California.
Well, yeah. Oh, you're right. So that would have been... 2018.
No, No. No, it would not have been.
You know, we have the magic of Google at our fingertips, and we just
2018
argue.
was yeah, you're right. Just look it up real fast.
Daredevil season 3, 2015 was the first season.
Yep.
And the third and final season premiered October 19th, 2018.
Okay, but we didn't go to Tennessee in 2018.
We did.
Jay, no, we did not. We started dating and no, there. Oh my gosh, we've been to Tennessee twice.
Yeah.
You're talking about going to Tennessee.
You're thinking of when we just
I
went
thought you
like
meant
last
Nashville.
year.
Yes.
No.
2 years ago.
No,
yeah.
when we went with your family.
I'm sorry.
And we stayed in that cabin. Because I the only reason I specifically remember that is because I remember literally laying in bed next to you and watching the first episode on my phone because I couldn't wait. And we were in the whatever the cabin was in Tennessee.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'm sorry. I forgot we went to Tennessee twice.
I'm right sometimes.
And he's also always right about his predictions when it comes
now she's
to
got to get all defensive.
Okay, no, I'm not getting defensive.
Don't take it out of me
I'm
just
not
because you can't
getting
remember.
No, I actually agree with you. I think your predictions, that was a compliment I gave you last week. I think your predictions are great. Don't turn me down.
No, I didn't. I just muted you.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Anyways, so back to the story. So what I was going to say through all of that is the issue that I have with the trope that you said, that writing trope of the flash forward, and it's been 7 years and now there's all of these holes that you have to fill and you have to wait for those to reveal themselves. It's really difficult unless you went back and rewatched those first 3 seasons, because now I'm like, wait a minute, is this something that I am forgetting from the original series, or is this something that is completely, like I'm not supposed to know?
Well, and
it?
also there's another aspect to that in this case, which I don't like, and I was going to mention, and that is sometimes you'll have a reference that references the Netflix series, whether it's seasons 1, 2, or 3. Other times you'll have something new that references something new in this series. And then other times you'll get references to other series on Disney Plus that like Kingpin was in. Because, you have Kingpin, he was in Hawkeye and he was in Echo. And I haven't seen either of those. And then Matt Murdock first appeared in Spider-Man No Way Home. And then he appeared in She-Hulk. And so they're like, and then they the main criticism I was going to give, and I it's something that I think has worked for Marvel for a long time, but I don't love it with Daredevil. In the comics, you have all of these things all intermittently kind of appearing with each other. So like, it's not weird if you see Matt Murdock with the Hulk. It's not weird when you see Matt Murdock with Thor. They do kind of change it from Matt's perspective a lot of times, so it feels very like they look like gods and things because he's so street level, but they are there. I mean, Matt Murdock has fought aliens, Matt Murdock has fought all kinds of things, but the thing I really appreciated about the Netflix series is how he was a part of the universe, which a lot of people don't know. He was a part of the MCU. They didn't want to acknowledge it too much because they weren't sure where it was going to go, and they also weren't they wanted to keep it so grounded. And so when like they kept it, the way they could do that is they didn't ever really reference any characters outright. It was a lot of, or events. It was a lot of whatever happened in Harlem. Well, they're talking about the end of the Incredible Hulk, but they don't talk about it to that degree. They talk about the incident, and that's what's led to a lot of the plot progression in the first season, because that is the Battle of New York from the original Avengers. They talk about that stuff, and they mention like, men in suits of armor and magic hammers and things, but they just are so easy with it. In this series, because it's part of the MCU full on now, and it's a Disney Plus show, I don't love that they just like outright call, like in this episode, they reference the Skrulls, which we kind of talked about. I had to tell you who they were. And it's like, I don't love that they're just like, what could he have been, a Skrull? Like, I think that's just way too on the nose. And I think that the writing was much more delicate originally in the Netflix show.
That's my second criticism, is I do think the writing is a little more, like you said, on the nose, and also a little melodramatic.
Yes. So it's It's hard. I'm kind of torn with it because we were talking about this too a little bit before we went live. And that is that like Charlie Cox, at first I criticized him, and not him necessarily, but just what he had to deal with. He acted like two different versions of the character.
Right.
And it was very off-putting. He was like the Netflix version, and then he was like a really like lighthearted Disney Plus character version in the first episode and in a little bit in the second episode. Then he kind of went back to being the Matt Murdock I know from the Netflix show. And now he's kind of doing a mix, and it's not a bad, now the mix is easier to deal with though, because it's not a Disney Plus comedy character. He's playing comic book Matt Murdock and Netflix Matt Murdock, like in different scenes. And I'm kind of like it. Like, and you said that too. Like,
I like it. He's spunky.
It gives him range because like he always was so pointed and quiet in the Netflix series, which worked really well for that series. But in this series, it does require a little bit more. He's gone through way more. He's lost his best friend, and everything's changed, and it's been a long time and all that. And then he's all stressed out because Fisk is back and he's mayor and stuff. So it's kind of cool to see him. He has a shorter temper. He's a little bit more, like you say, he's a little spicy. Like he's just more, he also has a little more confidence. All of that stuff is kind of fun to see, but it's weird to see him like jump back and forth so much.
Right. Just a quick question to everyone that's watching live on TikTok. How many of you watched the original series, or how many of you are just jumping in now watching Born Again?
That's a good question, because I know some people were like, do I have to watch all that? And they always tell you, because they're trying to sell the show, like, no, it's like they do a good job of like kind of helping you get through where, and I think you could.
I mean, that's fair because everything is confusing.
I think you could do that with this series and it's fine, but you do miss a lot. I mean, and not in just the plot way, like you just miss a good series. So if you haven't, I get it. There's a lot to watch, but
yeah,
Jared says he's way behind.
We rewatched the first 2 seasons.
And then we ran out of time.
So
we're still kind of watching them. But
I was gonna say we're still going back and forth because these only come out every week. So it's easy to we have a lot of time in between that we can rewatch the rest of the episodes. But yeah, it is. I would say that is true, though. You could watch Born Again without watching the original series. Because, like I said, everyone is super lost in the sauce. And there's a lot of stuff that they just kind of
thank you, Jared.
throw out there. And when you are like, for example, that Skrull comment, I didn't know what they were talking about. But that's an easy enough comment to dismiss and just be like, I guess I just don't know what that means. Because they touched on it and then it was gone.
Right.
And it doesn't matter. Like, you don't need to know what that is to keep watching. And I would say that is true, like, for Karen and Foggy and, Fisk. Like, obviously those were pinnacle characters in the first series. But if you were just joining, it's very obvious that Karen and Foggy are his friends. And that, when he gets killed, it was tragic, and you can tell that there's some history there with him and Fisk. You don't really know exactly what it is, but there's a lot of tension there. And then they both threaten each other at the end of of episode 2.
And I think that that's a good thing to note too. And it's kind of going back to what I was saying a minute ago too, where this feels more like the comic book. I didn't really say that out loud, but it feels more like the comic book. And that's what Disney's been doing with the Marvel, like the MCU stuff, is like, if there's something you saw at one point, this is going to be more, we're going to try to make it as much like the comic book as possible. Sometimes it doesn't work just because it's not as well written, but like this series feels much more like a Daredevil comic book as opposed to a Daredevil adaptation that makes it really grounded and real, which I love. And it's very Bendis and it's very, even Frank Miller, but this feels a little bit more in the realm of like a comic book. There's just more crazier things happening. Literally Matt can talk about a dude's magical amulet that makes him a superhero. And like, that doesn't stick out as much. But with that being said, it also is kind of like a comic book, because you could jump into Born Again, the series, like you could jump into a comic book. I mean, most people don't start reading comics by reading number 1 of something. They don't usually start by reading even the beginning of an arc to something. They'll just pick up what the newest issue is, and that's kind of the selling point of comic books, and they know that is you'll pick it up and you'll go like, oh, this is like issue 13 or 280, and it's arc it's part 2 out of a 8-part arc or something, and someone will just jump in and read it and they'll go, well, I know who Daredevil is a little bit, but why is he not a lawyer anymore? Why is who like, in a comic book you could be like, oh, I don't know who this White Tiger is. That's interesting. I'm going to look him up. Oh, he has his own series. I like him. I'm going to start buying his comics. Oh, he's crossed over with this villain. Oh, what's this villain from? Oh, he's a Spider-Man villain. I got to read Spider-Man and see what he does there. Like, it just opens the floodgates a lot of times.
Something I really appreciate about picking up a comic too is it's not, while you're reading, you don't have to go, hold on, I'm going to set this down and I'm going to go research those characters. They have like little cliff notes.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Editor's notes and things like that.
Where like I was sitting there reading about Daredevil. I was reading Daredevil, and then it said like, oh, that's Typhoid Mary. Do you remember what happened last time? And then in the cliff notes, it's like, issue this, page this. And so it'll tell you, like, if you want to read what happened last time that they're referencing, go to this specific
especially
comic.
If they reference something that is very integral to their story. Like, and sometimes they'll be like, this happened way, like literally a bunch of A's way back in issue something of this. And sometimes they'll reference things like, I'm reading the newest run of Daredevil and I'm a little behind.
Exactly, Sarah. Mini flashbacks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I'm reading the recent run on Daredevil right now, and I'm behind. I have them all, but I'm still catching up. But they just had one where they were like, this takes us way back to, like, I think one of the original Stan Lee, Gene Colan issues, like from the 60s.
Oh,
like
wow, that's cool.
They reference a character that like appeared, or at one point appeared, they do that sometimes. Most of the time it's like, remember issue this and this, and it was only like 5 or 6 issues ago when something major happened and they're just referencing it again. But it'll go all over the place. And that's just the beauty of comics, is like they were disposable entertainment that you just picked up and read, and a lot of people would throw them away back in the 40s. But now they kind of kept that mentality of just like, not everyone just follows this stuff, and they do their best to like renumber and be like, this is issue 1 of Daredevil. Well, there's like 30 issue 1s of Daredevil because they renumbered them so people could know, oh, this is a good starting point. It's a new writer, new artist, new arc, whatever. But sometimes it's my favorite things to do are just to, especially when I was a kid, just pick up the newest issue of something I've never collected before and start reading it, because it'll take you down a rabbit hole of just all of this information, and you may not know it all, but you'll get there. Like, you'll figure it out eventually. But that's kind of what's happening with this show, I feel, at least a little bit, and they do that with the Marvel universe now with the movies, is there's so many references to everything, and I criticize it sometimes if it's too integral to the story and it's too connected, because a lot of times in comics they can have these little pocket areas, which Daredevil fits in very well, because even though he's met all these characters and done crazy things, most of the time he's a street level hero, and he hangs out with street level heroes. And then, so he's not always a part of that stuff. But, sometimes if you're watching like a Marvel movie, it's like, and it's just like every single thing has to be from the last thing you watched. Or if you didn't watch WandaVision, then you're not going to understand Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Or if you watched, such and such, you're not going to understand this. And that can get a little, because, you're not spending money on a $5 comic. You're spending money on like a $30 ticket to a movie. And that could get annoying.
Yeah. That was hard for a little while to keep up with the Marvel, the MCU. They were just cranking them out. And to be 100% honest, I was sick of it as like not really a comic book fan. I was like, oh, I don't want to watch all of those movies. And so I'm just going to have to be confused on the ones that I do want to watch. Or, like, I'm just going to have to be confused, because they did that on purpose.
Yeah.
They did it on purpose, and they intertwined them so that you had to buy all of those. But I think it backfired.
I think it backfired in the sense that it has happened in comic books too, but they've been around so long, it's just kind of recycled. But in the MCU, their biggest issue was the quantity over quality. So it became less of we have a huge interconnected universe and there's references to all these different things all the time. And we get you interested in this other show or movie because of this show. But not all of them are consistently good. So like, then sometimes you get stuck in a thing where you're like, well, I really want to know what happened to this character because the last time I saw them in this movie, I loved them. And now they're like completely different or there's something they're doing that's different, but I got to watch this show and I'm not really interested in that show. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sure there are a lot of people who love it and that's great, but I'm not interested in watching Echo.
They're also not chronological because you think about Daredevil. So you watch seasons 1 and 2. Well, then chronologically, you can't watch 1, 2, and 3 and then move on to Jessica Jones. You technically have to go back and watch Jessica Jones like as they came out.
Yeah.
So like it would be then Jessica Jones season 1 and 2. So you can't even really catch up on this series until you've watched Defenders.
I mean, fully. Yeah. I mean, like, I think you can get away with it like you can with Born Again, but you're right. Like I just saw someone on Reddit who's like catching up on Daredevil and they're like, can I watch season 2 of Daredevil or do I have to watch season 1 of Jessica Jones first? And it's like, no, you don't have to watch Jessica Jones first. But when you eventually go watch The Defenders, which is integral to leading into season 3 of Daredevil, there's a lot of characters you're not going to know and you may not care about in The Defenders because you didn't watch their series.
Right.
And what Marvel did really well in their first phase up to the Avengers was they made it interesting to want to see all of those movies from the jump because while they came out pretty close together, they all had their own style, were very different, and they all like had their own story.
And
that
Luke Cage.
They gave you a reason to love those characters. So when they met up in the Avengers, you loved that. So if you get into a situation like they're in right now, which kind of is what happened with the Defenders, and you have, 1 or 2 of the characters are super interesting, but the rest you're not really looking to watch their show, then you don't have that emotional connection with them when they're teamed up. And that's happening now with the new Avengers team is no one even knows what the new Avengers team is going to be because they have, Sam Wilson, Captain America, and they have the Thunderbolts and they have some people you can guess, but no one's really interacted. And we haven't really gotten a lot of information on characters. Like for instance, the Black Widow's sister, she appeared in Black Widow, the movie back in like 2020. And she has not appeared again really since and up until this Thunderbolts movie that's coming out this summer. So it's been like 5 years since she's appeared in the MCU. Yeah. And so that's hard for a lot of people to be like, well, now I'm, invested in this because I loved this character. They kind of forget at that point. And so it's all about timing. It's all about quality. It's all about, all that. And yeah, I'm hearing rumors that Daredevil season 2, spoiler alert if you don't want to hear this, but the rumor for season 2 is that, from what I've heard recently, is that Matt is going to get a team together to help kind of push back against the anti-vigilante coalition or something. And
I really hope that's not true. I'm so sick of the teams. I don't like the series of like that is every single CW show that came out.
Yes, I was about to mention that.
That's where I stopped watching. Like, I don't want Oliver Queen, Arrow to have a team.
Like 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 people all doing the same thing.
Yeah,
that
like
happened
I
with
don't
Flash
need
too,
that.
where it's like Team Flash. Flash can do everything by himself. It's great to have someone over.
Flash can do anything.
It's great to have. Someone over your ear kind of giving you scientific calculations on how to do things because you're the Flash and you can collaborate. But like beyond that, if you're Team Flash and you all are fast and you're all doing the same thing at the same time in a show, that loses a lot of tension for me. And it's like, I just want to see Flash doing these amazing things. I don't need to see 15 other people.
That's the problem when you start introducing all of these other characters, just to have them in there so that they can have a team. The characters come off flat.
Yeah, because none of them gets enough time to be fleshed out either.
Speaking of, let's go back into this series because that is something that I still have a huge problem with in this new Daredevil Born Again series. And it came up again in this episode. I do not care about the new characters. Not even a smidge. Like, I do not care.
You mentioned this because like you said, we're still watching kind of the original series along with this since it's weekly, and we're rewatching the series from Netflix. And like, for instance, I agree with you. And the character that I miss more than anybody else besides maybe, I was gonna say Matt, but he's in the show. The person I miss the most is Claire, Night Nurse.
I loved Claire.
And she was like the linchpin of those shows because she was the one character that crossed over through all of these different shows for Defenders before Defenders happened and everything. And she's not in this. And they may do a reveal. She's such a
good actress.
Yeah, they may do a reveal or something and have her next season or whatnot. But she is a big hole in this series that is missing. Like, and she really grounded the characters. And she's one of the ones that makes you feel good when you see her because she's one of the OGs. Like, it's kind of like when Walking Dead, once you got to like the point of Walking Dead where all of the characters that you grew to love and go through seasons with, all of them started to one by one either die or get written off the show, and you get these new characters, it just doesn't feel the same as it did when you had the characters you first cared about, because it's like, well, I don't really care about these guys. Yeah, they're cool, but not as cool. And so then when another character that didn't die like shows back up seasons later to reappear, you're like, oh, I miss them. Like, it felt good to have them back.
Right.
And
I think that's what they're doing with Karen Page.
Yeah.
Which, that's fine.
I'm still going to say Foggy, too.
Yeah.
I'm claiming that still.
Yeah.
I think they're going to make that a huge... That's gonna break the internet for like a morning.
So there's two directions I want to go with this next part. So I think that they are keeping these characters kind of vanilla so that they can kill a bunch of them off.
Yes.
That's
I agree. I totally agree.
I there are so many on my like mental hit list where I'm like, you're gonna die, you're definitely
you're not developed
gonna die.
enough because we're gonna get to the point where we want to see you get developed and they're gonna kill you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that, but then let's talk about I want to know who you think are gonna die.
Okay.
And why.
Mm-hmm.
But then also when it comes to bringing characters that we loved from the original series back in, Punisher shows up. What did you think of the scene between Matt Murdock and Punisher?
I said this out loud when it was. I don't know if you agree with me, and that's okay. But I loved that scene. I thought that was a really good scene, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. Where it was like you got a character back that like kind of regrounds the show to where you once remembered it, and you get that feeling of like, oh, now this feels more familiar. And he's exactly how he was in the Netflix show. And I love John Bernthal, and I like him in that character. And I think the Punisher's a really tough character to pull off, and they always do a really good job with him in this. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing you mentioned is like Matt's a little spicier, and I think it's fun to see him a little bit more, like a little more like bring it to Punisher, and Punisher's the same way, and like that's a cool dynamic. And
I loved that scene too. A lot. It was actually probably my favorite scene.
It was my favorite scene of this episode.
It was probably my favorite scene of the new series.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it.
I put it up there for sure. I'd have to look over them again, but I agree.
But especially because it showed Matt's cracks. I loved that.
And you got that Charlie Cox acting.
Yeah, actually. You did.
Yeah.
So good. So
they actually did the iconic, and I don't know if it's intentional. It probably was, and it's really iconic because Matt cries all the time because he has a crappy life. And in the comics, they always do this really iconic tears dripping from the glasses, and that I thought that's very Born Again, like the comic.
Yeah, I loved it too, Debbie. I thought that was awesome.
I would watch honestly.
I almost applauded.
I'd watch John Bernthal on anything.
Can you just see Debbie alone in her room, like?
Oh, she does that. She does it all the time. You should have seen her at Star Wars. Yeah, I'm happy to see him back because he's a cool character, and they haven't really used him enough. I haven't watched the Punisher series, and I really want to on Netflix. They did, I think, 2 seasons of that, and every time I've heard someone talk about it, they said that it's not as good of a portrayal in the entire 2 seasons of Punisher as it was in season 2 of Daredevil. But they said that he's still like a good Punisher. He just didn't have the best story to work with. I don't know, but I really want to watch that, and it was just fun to see him. And that's the other moment I was going to mention that I liked this episode was you have that asshole cop who comes back.
Yeah.
And mind you, I said this again, that dude should be dead. He's like completely healed, fine. It's been like probably a week at most, and the dude's like completely healed. Matt broke that dude's neck.
100%.
I know they wanted to make it more brutal sounding and in the edit probably later on in post and stuff, but they killed the man. in the post because
They absolutely did.
that dude, he hit his head on a fridge and it was just splat.
And
then
they keep replaying it in these episodes like they didn't just do that. And you see, like, his neck is sideways. He lands right on it. And then there's like a blood splatter. And it's like, guys.
And then he comes back and he has a couple bruises and scrapes on his face.
He's not even wearing like a neck brace.
Yeah. But my favorite other scene was when Matt keeps poking that dude, and I love it.
I know. I like that too.
And he's like, you know what happened? Like he gets threatened again, and he's like, you know, not better written than this, but like he's like, watch your back, and Matt's basically like, well, you're gonna have to bring more guys apparently next time because first time it didn't work out for you, and I liked that a lot.
Yeah, I liked that too. Okay, so let's get back to it. Deaths. Who do we have on the chopping block? Who do you think is gonna die? Who do you think is gonna die first? Let's start there.
Well, I'm going to give you a long-winded answer if that's okay.
I love that.
So the long-winded answer for me is because I'm going to talk about something else we talked about as well, just to lead into it. It's obvious that they're doing what they've been doing since like season 1 of Daredevil on Netflix, and that is that Matt and Wilson Fisk are very similar people, and they had a very similar upbringing with just a few minor tweaks that made them go a different path, and they both have a lot in common. And so it's pretty obvious, but in this series, it's doing that again with Fisk and Matt, where Fisk is mayor and Matt, you know, his whole life has changed. He's not Daredevil anymore. And they're obviously mirroring each other in the sense that there's no way they're never going to be who they were in the past. Like they will always get gravitated back to the characters we know. So Fisk will always be a really smart, actually has a lot of good points, but bad guy and like kills people and is crooked and all this stuff. And then you have Matt, who is, you know, he has flaws and he's a very flawed guy, and he does things for the wrong reasons, but he has a good heart and a good spirit that makes him be a hero. And so you take those both away from them at the start of this show, and you're seeing them naturally kind of pivot back. So that's where you see, you know, Fisk, he has Vanessa's boyfriend or whatever that she cheated on him with, like Adam caged up, and he's sitting there eating and like basically torturing the guy when he says he doesn't know what's going on. And then you have Matt, who's up on the roof playing with his little billy clubs and looking at his mask collection and stuff. He's never gonna not be Daredevil.
Pause. That food looked so
It
good.
Did. It looked really good. I was like,
good.
I'm gonna start looking like Wilson Fisk if I keep acting that fat. But yeah, you're right. But that was just a very obvious way of them showing like they're both never going to change. And so with that being said, when you ask the question about who's going to die first, I think they're going to kind of go hand in hand in the same episode or very close. I think Fisk is going to lose Vanessa. And I think Matt is going to lose the psychologist. I don't remember her name that he's dating right now.
Kirsten.
I think he's going to lose her. But
Kirsten.
I don't think it's going to have anything to do with Fisk, and I don't think it's going to have anything to do with Matt, like with what happens to them. I think that Muse is going to kill, what's her name again?
Kirsten.
And I think Vanessa is going to be due to the fact that Fisk, I don't know who, but I think it's going to be due to the fact that Fisk is holding up Adam in this cage. And I think they're both going to be catalysts for them to revert back to who they once were and why they need to be who they are.
I think Fisk is going to kill Vanessa on accident.
That could very well be the case too.
I think he is, because we just saw the whole, you know, Kirsten had asked them, at the end of their session, she said, you know, do you feel safe? And she's like, absolutely. Yeah. There is not an ounce of me that thinks that Wilson would ever hurt me. And then you have them at dinner, or I guess they're just drinking wine, and rich person dinner, just wine. And she had said, like, I told her no, but should I be worried? And he, you know, he consoles her. He says, no, absolutely not. But then when he walks past the painting, that rabbit in a snowstorm.
Yes.
As you can see, there was a huge blood stain on it because their relationship is stained from the fact that they're not the same people anymore. And they keep mentioning that about how...
Well, and it was all due to season 3.
Yes.
Because that happened in season 3 when Matt arrests Fisk and beats the crap out of him. And it's right after they get married, Vanessa and Fisk. And so, yes, that's a good representation of how things will never be the same.
Right. And so, like, he still has it because it's still part of their relationship, but it's a stained relationship, and it's ruined a little bit in a lot of people's eyes, but he's still holding on to it. And I think that is a really good indicator that may be headed in that direction.
Yeah, I think it's going to be just a representation that Matt and Fisk don't like change.
Yeah.
And they don't want to change.
So going back to Muse's name was never said in this. And I know that there were a lot of rumors going around that Muse, a character from the comics, a pretty bad dude, from what I understand, was going to most likely appear in this show. They didn't say his name at all. They just showed a guy in a mask with kind of like blood eyes.
They had a graffiti part 2 that said Muse on it. But it was quick. It was just like a quick pan.
Okay, so for people like me who have not read a comic with Muse in it, who is he? Give me the skinny on who he is.
So Muse isn't one that I know a whole lot about, but I'm pretty sure he was in the Bendis run. If I remember from when I read him, he the best way I can explain it is he's similar to a character in DC called Professor Pig, which Professor Pig loves body mutilation and like making people his art. So he likes to like mutilate, but then on top of that, he likes to like
put them back together,
things like that. And like it's a super creepy, dark serial killery thing. Muse is very similar, where he like gets off, like I think he embalms people and then he like poses them and things, and he's all about art, and it's his art. And yeah, so he's one of those, and that's where I think when I go back to is it Heather? I keep forgetting. Who's not Heather?
Who are you talking
I'm thinking of the counselor again. I can't remember her name because we're talking Kirsten. We're talking about these characters that just aren't quite fleshed out, so I don't know their names.
Well, they're not fleshed out and they're not interesting.
Yeah. So here's another big theory from Jay, and I don't think it's that out of the realm. I think there's a lot of people who are putting this together, so I'm not trying to sit here and be like, I'm the smartest guy for this. But spoilers, if this does happen, this is a theory that I could see happening. I think that, and it's pretty much hinted, so I don't even know if it's a theory. Muse is, I'm pretty sure, the guy who walked up to Kirsten when she was signing her books and wanted her to sign them and said, "Hey, do you have any room for another person that you can like counsel? I think I need therapy." And she's like, "Yeah, I could probably fit you in." And you haven't seen him since. I think that's Muse. And I think Muse is going to kill her. And then I think that's going to lead to Matt realizing, along with many other things, that he needs to be Daredevil again because it's not working.
Because
and there's still supervillains out there.
If that happens, I feel like it's going to happen on episode like 8 or 9.
Yes.
Because that to me is a huge catalyst. And I think the reason that Matt quit being Daredevil is because he couldn't save Foggy as Daredevil. And then to realize that he can't save everyone as just Matt. Because he already lost his client.
Right.
He did everything by the book, and,
right.
and White Tiger died.
I think he's also doing it in honor of Foggy, who Foggy always believed, even when he found out that Matt was Daredevil, that the law is the way to do this. And I think he goes, well, I'm going to follow what Foggy wanted because it just is a way for him to cope.
Oh, sure.
And
that's a good point.
I think it's that. I think it's what you said as well, though. And I think that you're right. He's going to, because it's just like in the second episode where he's tried to do everything by the book, but he's still using his powers. He's just not dressed up as Daredevil, but he's still, he gets that guy who is supposed to testify for White Tiger out of his apartment. And then those corrupt cops come in and he's like, don't make me do this. Don't make me do, I don't want to do that. And then he beats the crap out of him. And like, it's just showing like, for these things to, if he hadn't have been in that position and been able to get out of that position being Daredevil, he would have never been able to win that case. And then it's another sign after he does win that case that just because he used the law to win this case, White Tiger wasn't saved, like you said. And so I think that's going to be a similar thing with Fisk, where Fisk thinks, I can change. I'm going to be this mayor. And he keeps dipping into this corrupt pot. And I think in this episode, it shows too, he's dealing with all the pressures of being in the light, where he's having to like listen to kids sing to him and like be like, there's boring aspects of being mayor and there's like things he has to do that he doesn't want to do. And I think all of that is going to lead to him having things still not work out for him, even though he's trying to do it the right way. And it's going to lead him to go back to doing what he does, especially if there's a catharsis such as someone dies.
Yeah, I whoever was on the writing team for that, or maybe the editing team, I don't know whose decision it was. It was hilarious to have that entire song, the like, we built this city.
Yeah.
We built this city on.
They even play it in the background, like
yeah.
while they're talking off to the side.
It was so instantly painful, and we all had to sit through the entire thing, and it was painful. And then to immediately go to another benefit where they're just singing it in a different language, I was like, oh my gosh.
What do you think is the deal with Fisk's weirdo assistant fan? Yeah, I think we talked about this a little too.
Dead.
Trisha thinks he's gonna die.
I don't know if I think he's gonna die. I have no reason for that. I just hope he's gonna die. Because I don't like him. I just want him to go away.
I don't think he's going to die. If he does, it'll be at the end of the season. I'm getting vibes that he's like his protege. And he's like going to groom him to be like a
but
Fisk
I was
Jr.
hoping... Me too, but I was hoping that he would also die.
It's either he's going to be like a Fisk Jr. or he's going to get to a point where he's Fisk Jr. and he's going to make mistakes that kill him, or he's not enough like Fisk to kill him.
That's the other thing, is he did threaten him. He said, if you do that again, it'll be the last thing you ever do.
And that could completely, that's something I have no theory on that, but that could turn into like he undermines him at one point because he gets rich with power through Fisk or something. I mean, there's a lot of ways that character could go. I'm having a hard time. I don't know if he is an actual character from the comics that they're referencing, or if he's a brand new character, or if they're even revealing that. Maybe they'll reveal he's a character once they give a name to him or something, but I don't know yet.
One thing that I will give Daredevil Born Again over the Netflix series is they do seem to respect the comics and the source material a little bit more than the Netflix series did. They went nuts killing people that were pretty integral to the Daredevil comic. Like I was really sad when they killed Wesley. And now they do. They have like a Wesley 2.0 that's always by Fisk's side that I don't know, but like Wesley is just always there.
He's a great actor too, and
he was fantastic. Same with Ben Urich.
Yeah, that was the one that bummed me out. I said it on Twitter. I think like the thing that the biggest misstep that the Daredevil series on Netflix did was killed Ben Urich in the first season. And you know, he never dies in the comics, or at least not for a long period of time or anything. He's a pretty integral part, especially to a lot of writers like Frank Miller and stuff. He's a big part of Born Again. And he's a really, in my eyes, it's kind of, he's not this integral, but he's a very similar idea as if they killed Commissioner Gordon. And so it's just one of those things where like, especially, you know, I see you want to change it up. It's not the comics. You can have your own kind of timeline where things can progress faster, because there will eventually come an end to a series as opposed to a comic book. So you can kill characters in movies and in TV, and it makes a little more sense. Like you can kill Tony Stark and kind of leave it there. However, I thought the biggest mistake out of all of that is just the fact that they killed both of those characters in the first season.
In like the same episode.
Pretty much, because it was a mirror.
They were like back to back or something.
It was tit for tat, essentially. It was, you know, you kill my guy, then I'm gonna kill your guy, essentially. But it was a bummer, because those are both great actors. They're probably expensive, but they're great actors, and they were a good part of the story, and they didn't have enough to do quite yet. And that's the opposite of what we're seeing with Born Again with some of these side characters, where some of these side characters are getting so much screen time, and I don't care about them. And they seem like they're going to hang around for a little while, but you're right, they could die. But then you have characters like Ben Urich and Wesley and Netflix, and it's like right when you start to love them, they die. And then they have to kind of come up with like a rip-off version of them in the following seasons.
Right. One thing that we have in the comments that Debbie said, I heard he, being Muse, paints with the blood of his victims. That's his art.
That sounds right.
He paint, and that makes sense because he was pulling out blood from that man on the table.
Yeah, whoever that dude was.
Yeah. Again, we don't know. We don't know where he came from. It's just a dude on a table. But so that does make sense. And then how involved do you think that the Punisher is going to be in this? Personally, I don't think he's going to be too involved. I think that from what we just saw, first of all, John Barathol is a fantastic actor, but he's got to be pricey. And I know they have that Disney money, but I imagine we'll see him maybe 2 more times.
I think he'll get like a full on episode this season, and not just by himself, but with Matt. Because one, I did see a leak of set footage of them together again in costume. So I think that at some point he will come back and help Matt, or vice versa. I do know that they decided they were going to do another Punisher series for Disney Plus, but ever since they've kind of reorganized to try to do more quality over quantity, they cut his series, and they're now filming a special presentation, they call them, on Disney Plus. So they did Werewolf by Night, which is a special presentation. It's just a one-off kind of movie show length series about a character, and they're going to do that with Punisher. So he's going to get like a big, I think it's like an hour-long special or something. And then he's still going to be in it, but I think they're just still figuring out where they want to take him. But yeah, I think he'll appear again in the next season too. I think he'll bring him back for that.
That wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, I think he'll appear much more now that it's kind of like when they showed Charlie Cox in No Way Home, and then he just kind of got sprinkled in through things. I think they're going to kind of do that with him as the Punisher. But yeah, I think they'll team up a little bit more. They never really got to team up in the series because they were enemies, and they still are kind of enemies. And then they kind of went. That's the criticism I got to give to season 2 of the Netflix Daredevil series. Is we just finished it, and it's very off and on. Like the first half of that season is just as good as the first season, and the second half falls apart a little bit because they have too much cooking. Like you have the Hand, you have Elektra, you have Matt, you have Stick, you have Nobu coming back, and then you have Punisher and Karen, and Punisher fighting these guys, and the mob after them, and the cops after, like, and none of it connects until the very end, and it's very kind of messily put together for a second. But like, I think that would have been much better if they just focused on Punisher that entire series, or that entire season, and just kind of had Matt follow this plot with them, and then they could have done the Hand another time. But
once you start introducing, and Batman runs into this too, when you start introducing the Hand, or what is it in
the
Batman?
League of Shadows,
yes,
or the League of Assassins, whichever you're gonna call them,
that gets complicated, and you introduce very complicated aspects to your story. That it's kind of like Harry Potter when they introduced the Time Turner. It's like you just opened up a whole can of worms.
Yeah.
And obviously comics have been around for almost 100 years, so like they have kind of ironed those out on like what we can do with that, what we kind of can't do with that, but it's still ever evolving. But then like you have J.K. Rowling putting in the Time Turner, and then everybody's just like, well, wait, why don't we all just use Time Turners all the time? And what's
killed
wrong
Voldemort
with that?
Before he became Voldemort.
Exactly. It's the whole like, go kill baby Hitler, would you do it? Kind of chicken egg situation. But then she comes out with the Cursed Child, and they use Time Turners in it, and it was very poorly received because it just got way too complicated.
Yeah.
Now to be
and
fair,
it requires
I
a lot of changing. I actually didn't mind.
I liked the Cursed Child, but I know that people are like, it's not canon, it's the worst. We just ignore that one. But yes. Hi, James.
The Hand, and for Daredevil, and then League of Shadows or the League of Assassins, they've called them both, are you can only have like a little drop of them is perfect. Like you get a good arc in there with them for a short amount of time and have them leave. the thing that most people want to see with Daredevil and Batman are the street level kind of noir mystery thrillers with these supervillains and things that are grounded. And you get the ninja stuff in there, and it's really cool, and it's a big part of like their origin, and it's fun to show their origin too. I've always been a big believer that those stories should get told much later in the character's progression. So like, you know, you have like Batman being trained, and you kind of just get hints throughout his career of what he did with these guys. And then they appear when he's well established as Batman. He has a bat family of like the Robins and all these things. And then they come in and kind of wreck his life. I think that's more effective because now you've established something. I think they should have done that with the Hand and Daredevil in the series, where I know they didn't know how many seasons they were going to do, and they obviously weren't never going to get there. But I think ideally, if you would have had, you know, this stuff with like, you know, you get a little bit of it with Stick and all that. Then you have the Punisher, and then you can kind of tell another story, like maybe Born Again. You can tell a story with Elektra. You can do all that stuff. And then like one of the last seasons that you may have, throw in the Hand and have them be the big bad at the end. Because then it all kind of comes together in like a poetic way.
Yeah.
But they always try to jump to them so soon that it's just way too much to process. And so in Daredevil season 2, when you have them, you know, still early in his career on top of all of these like 3 other plots that are intertwined, it's kind of hard.
Yeah. I mean, Karen Page got kidnapped like 4 times in 2 episodes.
Yeah. And I don't think they realized that until they probably saw it all together, and they're like, oh shit,
They're like, wait a minute.
That's another thing I was going to mention though too, is like the timeline of heroes. They did announce officially that Daredevil Born Again, in the canon of Daredevil especially, this takes place 7 years after season 3 on Netflix. So the last time we saw these characters in a Daredevil series and what they went through, whether it was with Bullseye and Fisk and Matt and Vanessa and all these people, that was 7 years ago in the universe. So there's been a lot of time since, I think, so it probably would have been 6 years when Foggy died, and then they did a year jump. So that's interesting. Which
would explain a lot of the animosity and distance between Vanessa and Fisk.
And that was the criticism I was also going to give with the series, is I kind of mess with that idea of him going to therapy with his wife, but I just never thought it was warranted yet, because it's just so abrupt. I mean, you have you have like just, they were so in love for 3 seasons, and they built up the whole story of how they came to be. And I get that the idea is he's been gone a long time, and she had to kind of fight for her own, and she was a part of his life. She couldn't leave it while he was gone, and she kind of took it over and did a good job, and now she resents him a little bit. But like, we didn't see any of that. It just kind of that it's the first time we've seen these characters together again since Daredevil season 3, 7 years ago, and they don't, like, they just are completely, they're very different. And so
honestly, I don't like that either.
Well, and I think that's another like situation where they probably would have benefited from having like throughout the season flashbacks of how that came to be. Like, whether, I know they didn't see each other, but show what Vanessa went through to get to that point. Show what Fisk did. I mean, they kind of did in other shows, but mainly Vanessa, is they should really be showing like, why is she feeling this way, besides just, you've been gone a long time. Show what you had to go through that made you so, like you said, icy.
Right. Because it was just weird when they first introduced them in the first episode, where he comes in and the room kind of clears out, and it just looks like she's not doing, honestly, it looks like she's a bad actor. And I'm like, that's weird. Yeah.
I just was thrown off because I was so ready for them to like embrace and be so happy to see each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that may have been the point, but it just didn't quite hit the way I think they wanted it to, at least in my eyes. Well, the other thing I was going to mention, which isn't really a spoiler either, but I've just overheard it in the grapevine from people who've watched the entire season. Episode 5 is a rough one.
Oh, so be prepared next week to not like it.
Well, it could be something you lower your expectations and you're surprised.
Well, then let's do that, because for the first episode of this, my expectations were very high, and it made me want to turn off the whole series. So let's go in with low expectations.
Yeah, but I from what I've heard, they're like, that one should have been scrapped because
the whole thing is
the
just
episode.
rough.
They're like, it's just rough. It's just not. It's a lot of not very necessary. But I don't know why, and I haven't obviously seen it. So I'm going in expecting that, but maybe there'll be things that surprise us because we think it's going to be so bad. We're like, actually, I don't know what that dude was thinking. It's actually pretty good, or it's like,
Right.
oh, I get it. I wish I wasn't so deprived of television. I'm just enjoying watching us.
Yes, James has. I think James's little boy is like 3 days younger than Harper. Is that right?
That's crazy because I'm going to say we're kind of bad parents because we watched the entirety of Peaky Blinders with Harper in our arms.
We're not bad. We didn't ignore her. 3 days, yeah.
We binged that so hard.
Look.
Right when she was so newborn.
I was going to say, it was when she was taking a lot of contact naps and we couldn't put her down, but...
so we had a lot to do, but not much to do but sit and
right,
watch
we just
stuff.
had to say... In fact, I remember us both saying, I'm so sick of watching TV.
Well, it was so jarring because we binged like the entirety of Peaky Blinders in like 2 weeks. And then we just went directly into binging the entire series of How I Met Your Mother. And they're very,
Oh, yeah.
they were very, very different shows, but we watched both of them like religiously all the way through just because we were trying to find stuff to watch.
See, we're not the only ones. Are there 2 episodes next week? No, I think that it's single episodes until the end. So the only 2 episode release was the very first.
Did they say something?
2.
Maybe they said something about that. I doubt it.
I don't think so. I mean, I can look it up again, but I don't
wonder,
think so.
some of these Disney Plus shows too, they've taken a week off. I wonder if they'll do that. I don't know.
They probably shouldn't do
it
that
said
before.
2. Maybe they're rushing through it.
Oh no. It probably said 2 because they know that one got rough reviews.
Well, that
so
makes
they're
me
like,
wonder
shoot,
if that's why they did 2 in the... I mean, they do
That's
that
what I
sometimes
said.
just to get people excited and hype. But like, I've heard from a couple different people that if only episode 1 premiered, they
Me.
would have not finished the show.
Me, for sure.
And I would have continued to watch it. But I will say too, like it was, and I also heard from that first episode. So that's the other thing I was going to say. They did not, it seems, they probably tweaked some small things. They really didn't change much of the original concept that they scrapped. Like the intention that I had, or the idea that I had when they were telling everyone behind the scenes, is that they filmed like 7 of the episodes. Kevin Feige hated them, scrapped it completely, brought in new writers, and that's where they connected it to the Netflix series and brought in Karen and Foggy. But they really just brought in Karen and Foggy for that first episode, and I'm pretty sure that he feels like every episode's a new court drama. And that's what they said the original concept was, and it kind of is. I mean, every episode.
But I kind of like that. I
No,
think it's very
yeah.
almost refreshing.
Sure, and I've enjoyed that, but it just sounds to me like they actually didn't change as much as they said, because the only thing I've heard now is that the last 2 episodes are way more tweaked. I think they're completely reshot, and then the rest of these are the same that the writers had intentionally, and episode 1 was the only one that was reshot so far. The first episode, or the first 2 episodes, were supposed to be episodes 2 and 3, so they were going to premiere 2 and 3 and do it the way they did this way, and then it was going to be 18 episodes. They canned it to reshoot stuff. So the guys that came in, they were able to make 3 of their own episodes and then tweak the rest. And then they ended up, or 2 of the episodes even, I don't remember. And then they delayed the last half of the season to rewrite it, and they are now shooting it now as season 2. Which is crazy.
comicbookclublive.com says that the Born Again season 1 premiere dates are episode 5, March 25th, episode 6, March 25th. So they are both coming out next week. So we have 2 episodes next week. So you guys were right.
That'll be fun. 2 episodes next week, especially if we need a palate cleanser from what apparently may be a rough episode 5. But yeah, they're doing that, and then I would guess they're going to just do 1 until the finale. Again, they're probably just rushing through it a little bit so they don't make it too long of a thing.
Are we going to do another late night? Have this live stream at 10:30?
We could just get, I mean, I guess we know ahead of time. We have a week to kind of prepare. So
Well, I know, but she still goes down at 8. So we can't,
that's
we can't
true.
watch it earlier.
Yeah, that's true. We'll have to see. maybe we can get someone to watch her overnight or something.
There you go.
That night.
Not Debbie. She's watching.
She's watching Daredevil. Or she'll take Harper over and say, "Oh yeah, I'll have her sleep over here," and she'll just mix her watch both episodes before she puts her down.
That's okay. Harper loves Fisk.
She does. I think it's because he's bald like her.
Well.
She also likes Lex Luthor in Smallville.
She's smitten. We were rewatching the season 1 a couple of weeks ago, and it gets to the point where Fisk is sitting in Urich's apartment, and he is like, "I'm gonna kill you. I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to kill you." And he gets up and he just strangles him, and then it just like.
That's
Hard cuts. I was gonna say it hard cuts to the credits, and they were like silent credits. And then I look over at Harper and I was like, "So, what do you think? Like, do you still like him?" And she just goes,
She did. She got like this little
like her shoulders went up, and she's just like,
and she's just like, "Oh, she's gonna be trouble."
She's the I can fix him type.
She's Vanessa, apparently.
There you go.
Well, we're at about an hour. Do we have anything else to discuss for the rest of that episode?
No, I think we had touched on all of the big points.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I think I covered everything I could think of.
I'm excited now that I know that there's 2 episodes, but I'm trying to level my expectations, knowing that episode 5 is not great.
I hear some of the strong, which I've thought there's some strong episodes already. Like you said, I feel like it's gotten better and better each episode, but
I agree.
I hear the really strong episodes are episodes like 8 and 9. Like they're really good. So.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad that
it'll end on a high note.
Hopefully. I was just going to say that. That's great.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions before we finish up for the night? Like I said, I think we've kind of covered everything.
Yeah.
Reading recommendations for Daredevil. I can do that real quick. I would say if you're wanting to get into the character of Daredevil, read Daredevil Yellow by Jeff Loeb. It's just I think it's just now called Jeff Loeb Daredevil. It's a one volume thing. Daredevil Man Without Fear by Frank Miller. Then the Frank Miller run, which is in 3 volumes on Daredevil. I would recommend, there's stuff in between too. I'd recommend maybe the Brian Michael Bendis run with Alex Malev. Like that's really good. That's probably the closest thing you'll get to like the Netflix Daredevil / this. And then there's Daredevil Born Again, which is Frank Miller as well, which is what this is named after. It's not really has anything to do with that though. But it's very, very good. And then Mark Waid's run, Chip Zdarsky's run.
Exactly, Jared. So
yeah,
you got to do your homework.
Someone said this on TikTok, I think, when I was watching, and they had a good point. Daredevil's one of those characters, surprisingly, that like doesn't really have a lot of bad stories. Like there are so many superheroes that like have, you pick up a story of theirs and it's just not very good, and then you have other stories that are fantastic, but it's very inconsistent. Daredevil has a very kind of like good time, like easy to follow timeline of his career in the comics, and nothing Daredevil is really that bad. There's stuff that's better than others, but none of it you read, all of it's like some of his worst stuff is like better than some characters' best stuff, to be honest. So he's a good one to jump into if you're like a fan of the character and you want to get into comics, because that's a good thing. It's really easy to just follow. He's kind of like Batman in that way too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it. That's your homework, I guess, if you want to do that. Otherwise,
yeah.
What?
Oh, so I was just gonna say, so next week, if you are planning on tuning in live with us, if you're not listening to these later, then we're going to go an hour later because we'll be watching both episodes. So we will be here around 10:30 p.m. Central Time on the Stranded J Podcasts TikTok page.
Yeah, and then we always post the newest live stream as a VOD the day after. So if you haven't, say you're watching this, it's been just the day after. What?
Sorry, I have not heard it called a VOD in a very long
Video
time.
on demand. I'm old. What do you want me to say? But yeah, it's the VOD. But yeah, so we will have this up posted as well if you guys want to rewatch it or something. And we have the other episodes we've done so far and our thoughts on the YouTube page and on anywhere you can stream podcasts. So
Yeah. If you are watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments if you agree with the people we think are going to die. If you have different theories for the rest of how this season's going to go, any imagery that we may have not picked up on, let us know.
And also just your thoughts on the episode. Let us know in the comments. So that's going to do it for this episode this week. Was it episode 4?
Episode 4.
We're moving right along. 2 episodes next week, and we'll be right back here to talk to you about them. So thanks for tuning in with us. It was fun to talk about it again. Make sure to follow Patricia Holly, where she will be singing music on TikTok tomorrow, right?
Always.
Wednesday. So make sure to tune in there, and we'll see you guys next week.